Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome and happy Tuesday to you. I am Lola Moore Johnston, and I am thrilled. I realize that I haven't been here for a while, so please, if you want, go ahead and say hello. I love to greet everyone who comes on live with me. But man, I'm so thrilled to be here today, and I'm really, really glad to share with you on the Bloom platform. And so we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. So wherever you are, please feel free to share. I am sharing something that is very, very dear to me. It speaks right to my core. And what an opportunity to leverage a conversation that is happening in the earth to figure out how we can be more independent and find our agency in ways that are honoring and aligned with the call of God on our life. Man, I can't wait to have this conversation with you. And again, I would love for you to just say hi in the chat as we get started. So, you may be aware that on last Friday, a gospel artist, one who we've known, well, those who are gospel lovers have known for over 35 years, Isaac Carree. We met him with Gyamfi and in the New Life Community Choir, and from Hezekiah Walker to Men of Standard to his own solo career, as well as singing as a background singer for Kirk Franklin. This man is one of the best vocalists in the gospel music industry. He is one that has been associated with excellence on every level of artistry. And he has started a new podcast. He's pivoting into podcasting, which I am all for. I think that everybody ought to have something of their own. And so it was great to see him do that. But man, on Friday, he released a conversation that has shaken the table for a lot of people who are in any way connected with Black gospel music and with the gospel industry. And this conversation is a conversation he had with a gentleman by the name of Norman Gyamfi. This gentleman is an executive in Christian music. He is one of the partners for the ownership group over Maverick City Music. He's a groundbreaking entrepreneur and has approached gospel music in a way that is different than any executive that I've actually heard and connected with. And his conversation, though I will take a little time to tease out some of the things that he talks about in the conversation, I think that the connection between Isaac Carree and Norman Gyamfi and their conversation creates an opportunity for us to ask some real questions about how we can leverage opportunity to build something of our own. And I think that this conversation is a perfect way to have that conversation among ourselves. I think that if we only deal with what was problematic for us or what was meaningful for us from Norman Gyamfi's business model, and we don't deal with what this means for us as individuals, as people who are part of a workforce, as people who are part of of faith spaces, of church spaces, then I think we've lost an opportunity. So I want to deal with this today. And I want to give you the opportunity. You can please, if you want to comment, jump in the comments. But I really want to talk about something that we don't talk about. And I'm calling this today, we don't talk about Norman. Now, many of us saw Encanto, and there's a song, We Don't Talk About Bruno. It's a song that talks about the ways that we kind of sweep certain things under the rug. We might have experiences and family members who do things that are a little embarrassing or uncomfortable. And so rather than deal with it, we sweep it under the rug. And I think that Norman represents a type of dynamic that we experience in church and at work that we don't really talk about. So Norman, who is Norman Gyamfi, right? Norman is a CEO and co-founder of what's called Insignia Assets. He oversees Maverick City Music, Tribal Records, Undivided Touring, and Three Diamonds Entertainment. Now, those names don't readily mean a lot for many of us, but if you're listening to any crossover artists like Maverick City, man, some of the most recent things that or tours that we've seen with Live Nation that are gospel centered have connection with Norman Gyamfi, like the most recent reunion tour, the Maverick City Kirk Franklin tour. All of those things are the brainchild of Norman Gyamfi. This young man, he just turned 40 not long ago. Let's start by by talking about the fact that this young man is a genius. This young man has done something with faith-based Christian music, gospel music that has not been done. We're going to talk about some of the issues that are there, but let's just start with the fact that this man is a shrewd and exceptional business person. He has made some moves and some connections that are crazy. And one of the most recent connections he made that was absolutely crazy was to sign Kirk Franklin as a partner. He is the creative director, Kirk Franklin, the creative director now of Insignia Entertainment, which means that Kirk Franklin is now the one who is finding new artists, who's over artist development, and who is what Norman Gyamfi calls quality control. So you imagine you have Kirk Franklin as a part of your organization, determining who gets picked up and that is unbelievable. And paired with the business acumen of Norman Gyamfi, this is groundbreaking. Kirk Franklin, in a recent interview that he did on the King's Table, he was having a conversation with Tyler Perry and revealed on that platform that the first song that he owned outright was Take Me to the King. Now, Take Me to the King is something that happened in the 2010s. So you mean that we've been listening to The Reason Why We Sing and everything since I was in school, and now the first song that he owns outright is Take Me to the King. It means that for a lot of gospel artists and people who have been in the industry, there really wasn't a whole lot of business savvy. They didn't understand contracts. They didn't understand the implications of the contracts they were signing. Not only were they signing bad contracts, they were creating bad contracts for others. And so a lot of people were losing a lot of money and really not able to provide for themselves and for their families while a part of gospel music, which Norman Gyamfi saw the opening of all of this bad business. He recreates the deals in ways that everybody's making more money. And on the surface, Norman Gyamfi has solved a huge problem, which is people who are in the gospel industry being able to make a livable wage and owning their intellectual property. Norman Gyamfi has essentially solved that. He's named one of Atlanta's 40 under 40, and he's a disruptor. So he's doing things differently. But in this conversation with Isaac Carree, he says a couple of things that are problematic. And those problematic things may gloss over some principles that I think we need to take from what Norman had to say. Now, this is not what I am going to ultimately talk about. I want to talk about what we can take from Norman, right? So one thing that Norman said, and we can argue as to whether or not he actually did pray and ask the Lord for direction. But one thing that Norman seems very convinced about is that his steps are ordered by the Lord. He believes that God is leading him. And while I may argue whether or not I believe the Lord is leading him, I can honestly say that there are too few of us who move with that level of conviction, who have a system where we are asking God whether or not this is the move for us and listening for God to say this is it. He's bringing that to the fore where he says, God told me, I heard the Lord say. So the question is, are we following Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 in our business deals? Is God really leading us? And if God is not really leading us, then can we honestly be in a position to get on Norman about what it is that Norman is doing? All right. So that's number one. Number two, he talks about infrastructure over inspiration. Now, this messed me up. He said that when he was dealing with CCM artists, that they had publicists and managers and agents, whereas dealing with gospel artists, they had their aunties and homegirls doing business for them. Whoa. I mean, he said that it slid under the rug real quick, but it certainly gave me pause and something to think about, that there was a space where he saw that there was a group of people who were serious about what they were doing and believing that they were working for the Lord, who were doing bad business because they didn't actually have business relationships. They had homegirls and friends doing business for them. He's like, that's not going to work. It's going to always end bad. The money's going to, wind up being a problem. And the question I had to ask myself is, how am I doing business? Am I doing business like a hobby? Do I have proper contracts in place? Do I have proper personnel in place when I'm doing business? Or am I just entrusting things that are designed to feed my family and to fund my legacy, like a potluck? My. Here we go. He talked about being strategic as to how he released information into the world, like being strategic to document and to show the work and the reach that the ministry that he was representing did. So Travis Green, they sang in front of 1 million people, but they did not document it. They were just happy to be there. And because it was not documented, there was a great opportunity that was lost to show others what it is that really was the reach of Travis Green. And so from that opportunity, he actually created a marketing company that simply documented and showed what it is that he did. He was very intentional about actually counting the work, being strategic about having data to justify the ministry. And I think a lot of us who are in ministry can be so happy or so honored to be in a space that we don't really document. I'm bad for that. I'll go to all kinds of places, but I don't want to seem like I'm being braggadocious. I don't want to seem like I'm throwing shade. So I just don't post pictures. I only repost what other people post. But that might not be best if I'm intending for what I'm doing to feed me and my family. I got to be a better steward of that. And then, the fourth thing that he said, again, this is not my point, this is his point, that if you are the only operator, what you're doing is only a hobby. So he said, I'm at a place now where people don't call me. I don't interact with artists. People are not asking me questions. If I were to die today, this business would go on. And he said, if you are having to do everything yourself, what you're doing is only a hobby. It's not a business, it's a hobby. And man, that's true. And a lot of us have only created 2 or 3 other jobs for ourselves rather than hiring a team so that it can be a business and free you up to live your life. And so those are some things that let me know that Norman is a business person, a shrewd business person. He doesn't do things the way I would do it, but man, he is successful in what he's doing. But there's a couple of things that are problematic that will overshadow what it is that he is, the real good that he could do. And I think the first thing for me is his seeming downplay of the sensibilities that people have for Donald Trump. So a lot of us, have some real issues with Donald Trump, but he is an open Donald Trump supporter. That's a non-starter for a lot of people, especially if you have Black skin. You can't walk around expecting to be taken seriously among Black people if you are openly saying that you're a Donald Trump supporter. That has just a whole nother connotation to it that causes people to throw you away. And because we didn't know who Norman was, a lot of us discounted. I didn't know who he was, so it didn't matter to me who his affiliation is or was with. But now it's going to make a lot of difference what his affiliation is, because he's out there now. Okay, so he also has discounted the emotional connection that Black people have with the Black experience. And so, he shared that he's the son of two doctors. And as the son of two doctors, that really, it shouldn't be an issue. There's not a problem for him with having had struggle when he was young or anything like that. That wasn't his deal. And so because he didn't struggle as a young person, then he doesn't have any appreciation for the sound of struggle in music. And so, one of the things he says, y'all sing too hard. Oh my God. Y'all don't nobody want to hear runs. Well, usually when people are singing with expression, it comes from an experience. But because the base that Norman wants to sell to does not really appreciate those things or does not listen to that music, then he has discounted the whole thing. So those things being said, caused me to have some questions about the people who Norman employs, because he's not employing white people. He's not employing people who don't have an appreciation for the way that gospel music usually happens. So how can you, if you don't see the inherent value in this, really honor the people who you're serving? There were at least two instances in the interview where somebody complained about the way Norman was handling them. It seemed like he was handling them without care. And there was some having to explain that he just needed to make sense. If he's making a deal, he just needs it to make sense and all this stuff. But the care for the people, the sensitivity to the way people feel, even in the way that he articulated in this interview, was missing. And again, rather than couching my entire conversation around Norman Gyamfi and how Norman Gyamfi moves, I want to ask you a question. And the question I want to ask you is this: who is your Norman? Do you have one? And if you have one, who is it? Okay. So I'm having a problem with my Facebook. I'm going to come off and come back on again so that I can make sure that everybody I need to see this sees this. But while I'm off, I want to ask you to ask yourself that question: who is your Norman? All right. I'll see you in a minute.